I get to spend the next 12 minutes with these two members of the Florida Legislature who care deeply about children and our future. In the interest of time, I'm just going to say a few words about each of them before we dive in. Representative Chris Latvala is incoming chairman of the Education and Employment Committee in the House. It's a newly expanded committee that will tackle the full continuum from early learning through workforce training. He was first elected in 2014 and represents Clearwater, that's District 67 in Pinellas County. Senator Loranne Ausley was elected just last month to represent District 3 in the Florida Senate. That includes 11 counties in North Florida and our state capital. And she previously served 12 years in the Florida House from 2000 to 2008, and again, most recently from 2016 to 2020, where she earned a reputation as a champion for Florida's children and families. So we're so pleased to have you both with us. We're talking about childcare today. We're talking about early learning, and we'll see where that conversation takes us. But I definitely want to start with a question on childcare. It does not escape any parent of a young child right now, any working parent of a young child, that childcare is essential. We've all seen stories in the news about the essential needs of childcare. Our doctors, nurses, our grocery store clerks, our pharmacists, indeed our childcare workers need childcare to be able to get to work. So Chair Latvala, let me start with you. How do you see this childcare situation? What are the challenges you're hearing about from constituents or seeing throughout Florida?
Well, thank you very much for having me, and it's great to see my former colleague, now Senator Ausley here, and my mentor, Representative Lupus, who is a great friend and I would say the biggest proponent of early childhood education in the Florida House, if not the entire legislature. So thank you very much for having me. I would say in terms of child care, the biggest issue that we're going to have this year, and not only with this issue, but most issues will be in terms of funding with the pandemic that we are facing as a state, and the budget impacts that any proposal and potential budget impacts that any proposal will have.
Great. Senator Ausley, I know this is something you are looking at closely, and you sit on the Select Committee on Pandemic Preparedness and Response, a new committee in the Senate this year. Do you expect that to be part of the conversation in that committee, and what are you seeing?
Well, let me echo my thanks to David Lawrence and to it's great to see you, Chair Latvala, and to Representative Lupus. We're lucky to have you in the House. But yes, I am. If any conversation about the pandemic and getting our economy back to where it needs to be has to include a conversation about childcare. If nothing else, this pandemic and other disasters like Hurricane Michael, which hit us so hard up here, have shown us the absolutely essential nature of childcare. And I think what we just heard from Dr. Shonkoff, and what we all know on this call, is that yes, childcare is essential, but quality childcare is essential. And that is, I think, the crux of this conversation. And it is a tough budget year, there's no question. But we also know that there is a renewed interest, at least from our president-elect, in real investment in early learning. So we at the state level have to be prepared to take advantage of those federal investments. So that would be my hope, is that's where the discussion leads us.
That's great. I know so much of the response over the last many months has been spending those CARES dollars that came down for childcare and for early learning. And so we'll hope to see more of that. Senator Ausley, you mentioned quality, and I wonder, this could be a question for either of you, but when we think of childcare, it is not just having a place to put your child so they are healthy and safe. We know that early learning is such an important part of that education continuum. How do you see that conversation on early learning changing in Florida?
Well, for the last couple of years, Representative Lupus and Representative Grall, and I know Chair Latvala has been involved, have been pushing pretty hard on a piece of legislation that would get us to a point of accountability, parent empowerment. And I think that's the first step that needs to happen. We're not going to be able to add, we can't go back to the legislature and say we need more money for this until we can show that, what it is going for. And I think, and I hope that we are in a position, the House passed it unanimously last year. It got a hold of, it stalled in the Senate. I'm hoping that, I've had positive conversations with this Office of the Senate President. There's some new staff over there who's very helpful and knowledgeable on these issues. So hopefully this is something that can get moving quickly, so we can get that done and have a real conversation about the investment piece.
Yeah. And Chair Latvala, that accountability piece is so important. And thank you both for your votes to pass that legislation last year. Is there anything you want to add about what progress we can expect to make this year on our VPK program?
Well, I'm very confident that will pass again. And I not only will it pass the House again, but I think that it will be in a good position to pass the Senate and ultimately become law. And I've talked to both Representative Lupus as well as Chair Graw, about that bill, and they're very passionate about it. And I think that we'll be in a good spot to, to make another run at it this year.
Well, it is great to hear that enthusiasm both from the House and Senate side, and we will definitely see you in committee on that, on the part of the children's movement. Chair Latvala, your committee has a wide focus now. When you think about the early side, you've hinted that early literacy is going to be a piece of this. Can you tell us anything more about what to expect?
Sure, and the speaker talked about it during his opening remarks at the organizational session. And I think that we're going to make a strong push at literacy, particularly in the early elementary grades. And it will be similar to what Dolly Parton and her organization does, where we will attempt to identify struggling readers as well as low-income readers and mail books to them on a monthly basis. And not only do that, but also incentivize the parents through reading boot camps at libraries and possibly schools to kind of teach the parents, similar to what Hippie does, kind of teach the parents how to read to their kids. And so that way these kids become passionate readers, and they'll have a collection of books that they can use themselves and also give to their friends and their brothers and sisters and cousins and so forth, to where they can really start a collection and a library of their own in their own house. And as the speaker mentioned, it will be a privately funded program, and something that I know he's passionate about and I'm passionate about as well, and something that we're going to have a very strong focus.
It's great to hear the way you talk about this as such a community-wide focus involving the libraries, getting books into people's homes, thinking about the impact on siblings and cousins and everybody that these children who are receiving the books will interact with. I would give just a shout out to our Miami-Dade program. We do have books that come in the mail for children through a book club from our Children's Trust that my own sons have benefited from. And it's wonderful to know that you're sharing books all across the county, and to think about that going statewide is wonderful. And that Dolly Parton library we know is not available to all children in Florida yet. So having something like this is really exciting. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's also significant that you're talking about reaching not just the children, but also the parents. And Senator Ausley, I know you have been involved with the South City Foundation and currently chair or co-chair that. Your approach there to changing health and education outcomes is holistic and very much to generation. Is there anything you're doing there that you want to share and that might be an example to spread throughout Florida too?
Well, I think that, Dr. Shonkoff again spoke about the importance of healthy parents, and that, the social determinants of health, we need to be focused on making sure every kid has food and a roof over their head, and the parents have transportation to jobs, and right now access to internet. Kids that don't have, or families that don't have access to high-speed internet are falling far, far behind in many communities, particularly in many of the rural communities that I represent. So we're focusing, the purpose-built model is a place-based revitalization neighborhood, focused on one neighborhood, and really a comprehensive approach that includes mixed income housing, a cradle to career education pipeline, and a health and wellness component. So we are, 1 year in South City, and very excited about the partnerships that we're developing and the resources we're able to leverage with the support of Purpose Built from Atlanta.
That's wonderful. And a question for both of you. When we think about the investments in early learning, it's tied to our health outcomes, as we heard from Dr. Shonkoff and as Senator Ausley just mentioned. In many ways, this is prevention for the future, and helping to lift people out of poverty. Is there anything else that we should be looking for in the legislature that we can do to help lift people out of poverty?
So I'm gonna go back to this purpose-built model of really supporting our parents, and really look, we have decades of inequities in neighborhood inequities, education, childcare, housing, you name it. And the pandemic, I believe, has really uncovered those fault lines. And I hope as we get on the other side of this, that we are really focused on those supports and rebuilding the supports for our families, because it is an investment. An investment in healthcare, an investment in early learning is an investment in the workforce of tomorrow. And so, and I think, the Florida Chamber has been a leader on this. And we have leaders in the legislature, but it's a little bit of a framing issue to make sure that we're talking about it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say that the way to end the cycle of poverty is through education, and it's through literacy, and one thing that we can do is also increase broadband and internet access in our rural communities. There's a lot of places in Florida, for instance, that cell phones still don't work. And they don't have the same kind of access, that other places in Florida have.
Well, thank you for all of these issues and how they fit together. That is actually all we have time for today. But to close, I have one quick question for both of you as we bring Vance back up here. In 5 words or less, what advice would you give to the 4 and 5-year-olds who are going to be graduating from VPK this coming spring?
Listen to your parents.
Do everything you can to be happy.
Thank you very much. Vance, if you want to add your 5 words in there, you're more than welcome. And thank you again, Senator Ausley and Chair Latvala, for being with us.
Thank you.
Fantastic, Madeline. Thank you so much, Senator Ausley and Chair Latvala. It is an honor and privilege to know both of you. Again, I was watching the chat, and Senator Ausley, people 100% agree with your concern about access to internet, and Chair Latvala, you're getting a lot of love for your acknowledgement of the importance of HIPPY and literacy. And one thing I'll say before we move on to the next portion is I think there's an interesting dynamic in the legislature this year, at least in the House side, with the bifurcation of the K-12 system, with early learning and elementary education being within its own committee, which will perhaps allow for an even more a more focused approach to early childhood policy. So thank you both so much. I know how much you truly care about these issues, and we're blessed to have you in the legislature.